Welcome to Fleet Auto News Podcast. I'm Caroline Falls, and today I'm speaking with ORYX People's Managing Director Kris Jager and Director Sharon Henderson. We're going to explore the challenges of hiring suitable staff for the fleet and transport industries amid the so-called Great Resignation, and talk about what companies can do to retain staff, what skills are required for today's fleet manager amid tectonic shifts in transport that's opening up new roles in the sector. So welcome Sharon and welcome Kris.
Thank you, Caroline. Good to be here.
Thank you, Caroline.
Firstly, I'll ask you, Kris, just to tell us a bit more about ORYX People, and that's spelled ORYX, as distinct from ORYX, ORIX, that does fleet leasing. So Kris, tell us more about ORYX People and how much of your business is related to recruitment of people for the transport sector.
Thank you, Caroline. ORYX was established more than 20 years ago as to provide executive search and senior level recruitment in the automotive and related sectors. In the main, our clients are automotive OEMs, large distributor groups, large retail groups, transport and logistics, finance and fleet leasing, and of course, of late, we have all the disruptors entering the industry, the subscription players and the EV and all the online business. We do not offer labor hire solutions, and typically our recruitment is focused on specialist and senior executive roles. The more senior roles are usually filled using the executive search methodology. Prior to getting into executive search, I enjoyed a successful international career with both BMW and Jager Land Rover. This detailed industry knowledge and the experience I gained along with a strong network has formed the basis on which ORYX People was established. Caroline, you earlier mentioned the name ORYX with a Y. ORYX in Africa is a very noble antelope and one that as a family we admired. And I wanted to have a bit of the South African background reflected in our logo. So if you look at the ORYX People logo, you'll see the horns of the ORYX prominently across the page. I hope that answers it.
Okay, well, thanks for pointing that out because I hadn't actually put the two together, and it makes ORYX with the Y more distinctive. Let's talk about the job roles in transport that are presently available through your agency. Like maybe Sharon, can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, Caroline, we can't discuss specific roles or the companies that we're working with, but what I can say is that, as Kris mentioned, our positioning in the market means that we're primarily focused on recruiting at that middle management through to senior executive level positions, and we work cross-functionally across several of the industry subsectors within that automotive, fleet management, leasing, transport industry, etc. So, for example, some of the assignments that we've completed in the last few months are CEO, Director of Marketing, Head of People and Culture, Sales Director, Pricing and Remarketing Manager, even Senior Commercial Manager, Heavy Vehicles. So there's quite a wide variety of roles. And as I said, because we work cross-functionally, our expertise is industry knowledge, in addition to obviously that middle to senior level management roles.
Okay, and just Sharon, again, like I was thinking that there are probably more jobs being advertised and unfilled. You know, at the moment, there's so much talk about, labour being or staff vacancies. And I was just wondering if that is the case, and let me know if it is or is not. but if it was having any effect in the recruitment process, like have you had to speed things up, cut some corners, recommend people for jobs that a couple of years ago may not have had quite the same chance?
Yeah, sure. Look, there's no doubt that there are a lot more jobs being advertised now than there were pre-pandemic. And in fact, discussions with our clients have indicated that generally there's about 10 to 20% of vacancies in an organisation at any one time. And whilst it would be nice to try to speed things up, the reality is that we have a certain process and we don't cut corners in that process. But what we are finding is that clients are having to be more open about widening the net and considering candidates that perhaps they may not have wanted to or needed to consider previously. So what this means, of course, is they're now having to offer more training internally for candidates to get them up to speed. It also means that good candidates need to be snapped up and onboarded a lot more quickly than beforehand, because they're just not staying around in the job market for that long. What we've also found is that counter offers are a significant issue, and that's something that really does need to be factored in. Look, hiring managers are short-staffed, they're overworked. So what we try to do, of course, is send only the good candidates that we know they'll be wanting to meet with. Otherwise, we just waste each other's time. And at the end of the day, the cost of recruiting the wrong person is a huge expense on an organisation. So getting it wrong is, can be catastrophic. And we also find that our networks, I mean, Kris and I have been doing this for 20 to 30 years, so our networks are vast, and being able to utilise those networks to search for candidates, we're getting a lot more success than, say, direct advertising, because a lot of candidates are simply not responding to advertisements.
Oh, thanks for that. I was just wanting to talk a bit more about that statistic. You said something like 10 to 20% of vacancies in an organisation. That sounds extremely high. Do you know what is more of a normal figure?
Look, more of a normal figure would be half that, 5 to 10%, quite often. And that's as a general rule. Some organisations do have higher turnover than others, but as a general rule, 5 to 10%, but at the moment it is double.
Wow. Okay. Kris, just turning to you, I was wondering if you could tell us from your perspective about the so-called Great Resignation. Is this something that you're witnessing? And maybe you can tell us what happened and why did it happen?
Thank you, Caroline. Yes, I can't say I have a definite view on why it's happened. But what we have experienced is that people have all had a big mind shift as a consequence of COVID. People are moving into country towns, coastal towns. They've had a taste of flexibility, and working from home reduce a lot of commuting times, which is a lot more productivity. In some instances, we have witnessed executives at an elderly age to retire a little bit early. And some people have moved away to areas where they can work part-time or commute. And I know of people that's moved to Coffs Harbour, where they don't have to drive, but they can fly into Sydney for a weekly meeting. We've also found people have left their organizations and joined organizations that more aligned to their personal values. COVID has given everybody a time to reflect, to think about life. And if you think of the people, how they were locked down in Melbourne, the organizations didn't help and support the people. They're moving on. We've seen a lot of people taking advantage of the high house pricing in the metropolitan areas and downsizing into the country. I even know about people who drive weekly to the Upper Hunter region. But yes, anecdotally, I can say there's been a lot of movement, maybe not the Great Resignation, but COVID has really changed, and I think we now have a new norm from which to operate.
We'll be back after a short break for a word from our sponsor, Sofico Services.
Sofico is a world-leading provider of enterprise software for the automotive leasing, finance, and mobility industry. For more than 30 years, international leasing companies and OEMs count on Sofico's expertise and technology to help them transform innovative product concepts into streamlined business processes and engaging customer experiences. With more than 370 experts, 8 offices on 4 continents, and an annual growth averaging 15%, Sofico is perfectly positioned to help its customers succeed in a rapidly changing market where electrification, shared fleets, and multimodal mobility challenge us and our customers to play a pioneering role. Continuous investment in people, innovation, and leading-edge technology is the basis for continued growth and success.
I'm also curious now about the changing role of the fleet manager, especially with fleet electrification, telematics, and sustainability measures coming into play in many companies. For example, people need to be able to read data. Do you see new skills popping up as requirements for potential fleet management positions? And who wants to answer that?
Look, I'll answer that, Caroline. The answer is absolutely yes. We are seeing a shift in the role of the fleet manager and the skills that they're requiring. And I think the biggest thing is that the role is moving away from what was a fleet management decision-making process to more of a procurement-based model. So it's really become a lot more about money and cost savings. And of course, what that means is that a fleet manager needs to have the sort of skills where, as you said, being able to read the data or extract the data for analysis is critically important. That having that understanding of pricing, residual values, etc., they're all key skills, whereas previously it was really about analysing the operational use of assets more so. Something else they really need to be across is the trends, having that knowledge of trends in the mobility sector. With the introduction of electric vehicles to the fleet, the growing trends in the telematics, which is all exciting, but of course they need to be completely across it. Vehicle size, understanding that, it looks like small to medium sized vehicles at the moment is the growth area. But all of that aside, some of the other challenges that they're currently facing is the supply of vehicles, which is, the shortage is something that most are finding extremely challenging. And of course, what that does is it forces them to look at other options to bring supply in. So things like short-term use of vehicles through subscription services, go get, etc., all of those. So they're having to be really looking at problem solving to get that supply through. I think digital, the whole move to a digitalized, automation-based function means that they're having to be a lot more advanced with their IT skills and capability. So I suppose, to summarize, we're talking very strong commerciality and being very financially savvy, knowledge about trends in the mobility sector, ability to extract data for analysis, that problem-solving capability to deliver, as I said, the short-term solutions, and having that more advanced IT skill set.
I thought I'd also ask about women in the sector. Like, there's such a huge gap between male and female workers in this sector. I don't know if there's any other industry that's got a wider gap. Are companies trying harder to attract women, and what do you think can be done to draw more women into the sector? Sharon, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, of course. Look, broadly speaking, the automotive and transport industries in general have a very large gap between male and female workers. There's no doubt about that. But many are definitely working hard to close this gap. And what we found in particular is that fleet management organisations, or FMOs, tend to be more generally gender balanced as a business overall within that sector. And in fact, one CEO of an ASX listed fleet management organisation recently stated that they have the most females on their board out of all of the ASX listed companies, which is quite impressive. But look, you know, a lot more is being done to attract women into the industry, or even back to the sector. You know, trying to fill those gaps. Things like the government measures making childcare more affordable, and of course opening up more places in childcare will definitely help. Flexibility around the hybrid working environment, absolutely, that's helping. Job share, you know, the ability to job share and provide women with the opportunity to work school hours or you know, certain days, that helps to bring more women back into the industry as well.
Oh, with current things that are going on, trends, you know, support for paid childcare, etc., gives me hope that more women will definitely find a way in at this particular time. Now, we mentioned COVID before, but the other thing that COVID and the lockdowns did was drive e-commerce sales and spur people to online shopping for groceries and everything else. And also, importantly for our conversation, raised the importance of you know, transport and logistics workers in the eyes of the general public. Do you think that's true, Kris?
Yes, Caroline, I totally agree with that statement, and I also think this trend will continue. It may even get worse in the future. As previously stated, you know, we've adopted a new way of life, and it's not going to change.
Yep, but that could actually help by raising the profile of, you know, transport workers. Then it might drive some education and enthusiasm for the sector.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and at the job summit, they were talking about reducing the time for bringing people into the country. But you know, if you think you bring a foreigner in from a third world, for instance, it will take a long time to train somebody like that to go onto our roads with big trucks, heavy vehicles. So I think it's going to be a challenge. And, you know, you got the effect of Uber taking a lot of those drivers away, because it's a lot easier for them. So I think the challenge is going to be ongoing. And
okay. Yeah, well, thanks for those comments. And I was also going to ask, I'm not sure if this is really relevant, a question for your organisation, which is focusing more on management and etc. in transport. But I was talking to a CEO of a big freight company earlier this week, and he regularly meets with drivers and other people down the line in the organisation to get their input and to thank them for their work. And I was thinking at the time, like, what a great way to show these people how valued they are, and that maybe they're the sort of measures that will help retain workers who may have otherwise been lost, you know, somewhere else. And what do you think, or do you have any other ideas for staff retention?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I think the CEO you're referring to demonstrated excellent leadership skills and is clearly very much in touch with the current issues of staff retention, because employees who feel valued and are generally happy with their working conditions are more likely to resist attempts by the company's competitors to lure them away. And right now, there is a lot of poaching going on between competitors in this industry sector. So look, another thing that's very important, of course, is employment branding as a retention tool. Organisations being an employer of choice and what that means for their employees, the advocacy for the employees, etc. Certainly in a tight labour market, it's made it hard to get workers. So it's crucial to look after the ones that you have. And whilst people will often leave for a pay rise, employers could actually be a bit more preemptive and improve wages and conditions to keep their staff before that employee needs to go out looking for another role. Look, and what we've also found is a lot of companies are offering a range of non-financial benefits in order to retain staff. We go back to the hybrid and hybrid working conditions flexibility, but things like offering learning and development programs, whether that's something like offering to subsidise an MBA or something along those lines, subsidised gym memberships and private health and insurance benefits. And look, I even know of an organisation that provides financial planning advice to their staff, which I thought was a really, really clever, innovative thing for them to do. And it was extremely well received in the organisation. So, there's a few things there that employers could consider in terms of retention for workers.
Yeah. Caroline, I'd just like to add to what Sharon has said. That just reminded me of something. You can look at the organizations, and if they have the HR function reporting into finance, you're going to have all the problems you have in the world. It's the organizations where the CEO partners with the HR leader to foster that culture that Sharon was mentioning about. And that will shift to the boards as well. HR has to have a place where the board is interested. And we've seen that with so many organizations over the last 2 years in particular, where the reward is only going on finances to the board members and the chief executives, and nothing is coming down the line. So the employment brand is going to be so important. We get candidates interviewing us about the organizations we represent. That whole value, that whole care, holistic care for people has become critical. We've seen a lot of that, haven't we, Sharon?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, more so than ever.
Yeah, wow. I thought I'd also ask you how at ORYX People you build your own sort of name in the transport sector. Kris, do you want to talk about that?
Oh, that's very kind of you to care about us that way, Caroline. Yes, look, we have, as I mentioned to you earlier on, we defined our target market previously as the OEMs, the distributors, the large retail groups, transport and logistics, finance and fleet and leasing, and the disruptors. Now, by definition, some of these sectors already supply the transport industry with products and services. In terms of your question relating to our growth, I have to say that most of our work comes from referrals. However, we are broadening our client base to reflect this changing nature we've been discussing today. And we are looking to partner with a number of the players that's disrupting the traditional business models, such as the online business, the digital changes that Sharon has spoken about. So, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So everyone keep your eyes out for ORYX People, and you know where to go. Working in this sector, it's ORYX People are the specialists. So Sharon and Kris, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're both incredibly busy trying to help your clients fill all these vacant positions. And so I really appreciate your time, and I hope our audience learned a few tips to help them retain and attract staff or get a new job.
Thank you, Caroline. It's been great speaking with you.
Yep. Thank you, Caroline. Lovely meeting you, and good luck with your career as well.
You've been listening to Fleet Auto News podcast. It was edited and produced by Isabella Fiorentino. Thank you again to our new sponsor, Sofico Services. It's great to have you on board. The original theme music for this podcast was created by Isabella Fiorentino. You can follow us on Spotify. Just search for Fleet Auto News. We're also on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. Our website is fleetautonews.com, where you can get all our stories, videos and podcasts. Until next time, drive safely and take care.